Most people have never voted for BlackRock. Yet this one company may have more control over your life than your own government. It decides how markets move. It shapes global policies. It influences presidents without ever needing a single campaign. And it quietly sits on top of trillions that can tilt entire economies in any direction. What makes this even more unsettling is how little the public knows about it. You never see BlackRock on the evening news. You never hear its name during elections. But its fingerprints appear on everything from your rent to your food prices to the companies that dominate your city. A single firm is now intertwined with banks, governments, militaries, and critical infrastructure from one continent to the next. It manages so much of the financial world that entire countries depend on its decisions to stay afloat. Yet no one voted for the people who run it. No one elected them. No one truly understands how much influence they hold. This is the story of how BlackRock rose from nothing to a force that presidents fear and global markets obey. A story that begins with one man who refused to accept an ordinary life, and what he built will make you question who really runs the world. But to understand how BlackRock reached this level of control, we need to go back to the moment that started everything. You said? Larry Fink's rise from nobody to global power broker ***. Larry Fink did not grow up anywhere near power. He was the son of a shoe seller with no connection to the elite world he dreamed about. But from a young age, he wanted influence. Real influence. The kind that puts your name in rooms where presidents sit. While most teenagers worried about school or friends, Larry studied people who shaped nations. He wanted to understand how powerful men rose from nothing. He wanted that for himself. So he entered UCLA as a political science student. Politics seemed like the perfect road toward the life he imagined. But something unexpected happened. An elective real estate class grabbed his attention. Suddenly he became obsessed with the world of finance. Not elections. Not speeches. Money and the control that came with it. He left politics behind and pushed himself into the financial world with a new goal. Become rich. Become untouchable. Become feared. Wall Street became the stage for his ambition. At First Boston, he discovered a financial weapon that would change everything. Mortgage-backed securities, a new idea at the time. A way to turn home loans into something that could be sliced, sold, and multiplied. Larry mastered it faster than anyone. The money poured in. Clients praised him. Coworkers envied him. He rose to the top at a speed no one expected. But success turned into ego, and ego turned into blindness. Larry placed a massive trade based on interest rates. He believed the market would move in his favor. He even bought a hedge to protect himself. He felt unstoppable. Then everything collapsed. The market moved the opposite way. His calculations were wrong. His hedge was flawed. The loss was enormous. A $100 million mistake. His reputation was shattered overnight. People stopped talking to him. First Boston pushed him out. For most people, this would have been the end. For Larry, it became the moment that changed his life. Failure filled him with a cold clarity. Risk had destroyed him. So he made a promise to himself. He would learn to understand risk better than anyone else alive. He would turn risk into a weapon. That decision created the foundation for the empire he would build later. An empire that would quietly spread into governments, banks, and global systems. But first, Larry needed a way to rebuild. And the idea that would rescue him was about to pull him back into the game. The birth of BlackRock, and the software that controls Wall Street *** BlackRock. After losing everything, Larry refused to disappear. He gathered 8 people who still believed in his vision. 8 people willing to follow a man who had just destroyed his career. It was a strange choice, but great empires often start with people who can see past the smoke. Larry met with Stephen Schwarzman from Blackstone, a giant in the private equity world. A man who understood opportunity when he saw it. He gave Larry $5 million to start a new firm. Larry accepted half the ownership in exchange. The partnership created something the world had never seen before: BlackRock. From day one, Larry built it around one obsession: risk. He wanted to understand every possible danger in the market before it happened. He wanted a system that could predict the future by simulating every disaster imaginable. So BlackRock created a tool. A tool that would one day become the central brain of global finance. They called it Aladdin. At first, it looked like a simple analytic program. But it quickly evolved into something far more powerful. Aladdin could scan market data in real time. It could run thousands of scenarios in seconds. It could tell you what would happen if interest rates moved by the smallest amount. It could detect hidden risks in massive portfolios that even experts could not see. Clients loved it. Banks trusted it. Governments soon relied on it. Even BlackRock's biggest rivals used it to manage their own portfolios. And this is where the quiet shift happened. BlackRock did not just manage money anymore. It managed the very information that the financial world needed to breathe. Aladdin tracked trillions across global markets. It watched mortgages. It watched stocks. It watched bonds. It watched the movements of entire economies. If the financial world was a body, Aladdin became the nervous system. It felt every signal. It predicted every reaction. It warned BlackRock long before danger reached anyone else. This was not just software. It became a silent superpower. A tool with access to data that most governments could only dream of. A tool that institutions became dependent on without even realizing it. Larry now had something stronger than money. He had information. He had a system the world could not function without. And when the next crisis arrived, this advantage would change everything for him. The moment that transformed BlackRock from a rising firm into a global power was coming. And it would cement Larry Fink's place at the top of the financial world. The crisis that changed everything and made BlackRock untouchable asterisk. The financial world was swelling with confidence. Mortgage-backed securities were everywhere. Banks loved them. Investors trusted them. No one questioned the danger buried inside them. Then the market snapped. Homeowners stopped paying. Loans failed. Banks panicked. Portfolios collapsed in slow motion. The entire system began to crack open. Wall Street went into a free fall. Bear Stearns imploded. Lehman Brothers died overnight. The panic spread through every corner of the economy. People feared the whole system would break. But BlackRock was strangely calm. They had limited exposure. Their risk models had warned them early. Aladdin had seen the danger long before anyone else took it seriously. While others drowned, BlackRock stayed afloat. And that survival turned Larry into the most valuable person in the financial world. Someone had to clean up this broken system. Someone had to evaluate toxic assets. Someone had to tell the government how bad the damage really was. There was only one firm capable of doing it. The Federal Reserve called Larry Fink. Treasury officials called him. Regulators called him. He became the private advisor behind the largest rescue mission in modern history. Every day, Larry spoke directly with the most powerful people in the country. He gave them strategies. He gave them numbers. He gave them a blueprint for stopping the collapse. BlackRock was no longer just another firm. It had become the emergency doctor for the entire financial system. And once you become the doctor that saves everyone, people never stop calling you. The crisis destroyed competition. It destroyed trust in banks. But it made BlackRock essential. It showed governments that the only thing more dangerous than letting BlackRock in was leaving BlackRock out. Larry walked out of that disaster with two things that mattered more than money: influence and dependence. From this moment forward, when markets shook, when banks trembled, when governments needed answers, they called one name first: BlackRock. And that new power would protect them when the next threat appeared. A threat not from markets, but from regulators. And Larry had a plan for that too. The loopholes that let BlackRock escape every regulation asterisk. After the crisis, Washington finally woke up. Politicians promised to punish Wall Street. They promised to stop another meltdown. They promised strict rules for the biggest firms. The Dodd-Frank Act became their weapon. It created a list of companies considered too big to fail. These companies faced intense supervision. They needed huge amounts of cash reserves. They lived under constant regulatory pressure. Banks hated it. They had to shrink their operations. They had to cut risk. They had to answer to regulators who watched every move. But while banks were being squeezed, BlackRock watched quietly. They knew something important. They did not want to be placed on that list. They did not want those rules. They did not want that weight. So Larry Fink made a move that changed everything. He launched one of the most aggressive lobbying campaigns in modern finance. His goal was simple: convince regulators that BlackRock should not be treated like a risky institution. The strategy was brilliant. BlackRock argued that it did not use its own money. It only managed money for clients. It claimed that its influence came from its service role, not its balance sheet. It said that if anything went wrong, clients would suffer, not the entire system. This argument was crafted with precision. And it worked. BlackRock avoided the too big to fail label. They did it while being larger than almost every bank on the list. They did it while controlling massive parts of global markets. They did it while advising the very regulators who were deciding the rules, and then came the real twist. BlackRock was officially labeled a passive investor. That one label protected them more than any legal team ever could. Being passive meant they did not need the strict rules that active owners had to follow. Being passive meant they could hold large chunks of hundreds of companies without raising alarms. Being passive meant they could influence the world while claiming they were not influencing anything. It was a perfect shield. A shield built on technical language and political relationships. A shield that let them grow faster than every regulated rival. While banks struggled under new laws, BlackRock expanded across industries. While others were forced to step back, BlackRock stepped forward. While regulators watched everyone else, BlackRock moved freely. Larry had created a system where BlackRock held enormous power without carrying any of the legal burdens that came with that power. He had turned regulation into an advantage. He had slipped through the cracks that crushed everyone else. And this was not luck. It was strategy. A strategy that would grow even stronger when BlackRock found a new way to extend its influence. Not through markets, through governments themselves. The next step in their rise would be even more stunning. The global revolving door between BlackRock and government's *** power grows faster when the people who write the rules are the same people who benefit from them. BlackRock understood this early. So they built a quiet bridge between their offices and the most important seats in government. It began slowly. One former regulator joined BlackRock, then another, then another. People who once enforced rules now worked inside the firm that wanted those rules softened. Then the movement reversed. BlackRock employees started stepping into high government positions: Treasury, the Federal Reserve, the Securities and Exchange Commission, places that decide how the entire financial world functions. By 2020, more than 100 people had moved between BlackRock and U.S. government institutions. It was no longer a coincidence, it was a pattern. A system, a revolving door that kept turning. This strategy was genius. People who left BlackRock carried insider experience into government. People who left government carried regulatory knowledge into BlackRock. Each side helped the other. Each side gained influence. BlackRock never needed to shout. They never needed to threaten. Their people were already in the room. They already understood the rules. They already understood how to shape new rules in ways that benefited the company. The influence was not limited to the United States. It spread across Europe. It spread into central banks. It spread into global institutions that guide the financial policies of entire regions. In Germany, it went even further. The man who became chancellor once held a top position at BlackRock. The leader of Europe as most powerful economy had direct ties to the world as largest asset manager. No election campaign could have given BlackRock a stronger connection than that. Even national infrastructure banks were shaped by BlackRock advisors. Laws were written using frameworks they suggested. Public money was directed through systems they helped design. Governments leaned on BlackRock for guidance while BlackRock gained deeper access to public strategy. It created a world where the biggest decisions were influenced by people who had passed through the same corporate doorway. A world where financial policy and corporate ambitions slowly merged. Critics warned about it. They said this level of access made true oversight impossible. They said regulators would hesitate to challenge a firm that could one day employ them. They said the line between public service and private interest was disappearing, and they were right. By the time anyone realized how much influence BlackRock had accumulated, it was already too late. The revolving door had built an invisible network. A network strong enough to protect BlackRock from real scrutiny. A network powerful enough to help them move toward their next goal. Because Larry Fink was not satisfied with control over money. He wanted control over something much bigger. Something that shapes every daily life on the planet. Infrastructure. And that move would take BlackRock into a territory where no financial firm had ever gone before. The turning point. How BlackRock took control of the world's infrastructure ***. For years, BlackRock focused on markets. Stocks, bonds, indexes. Things most people never see. Things most people never think about. But Larry Fink saw something else. He saw a world breaking apart. Conflicts rising, climate disasters increasing, governments collapsing under debt. Every crisis damaged something physical: roads, power lines, pipelines, hospitals, airports. And every broken piece of infrastructure created the same result: a desperate need for rebuilding, a guaranteed demand, a long stream of payments, in other words, the perfect business. BlackRock understood that people can live without stocks. They can live without crypto. They can even live without banks for a short time. But no one can live without water, electricity, heat, transport. You cannot choose a different water source if your city only has one. You cannot choose a different airport if your region only has one. You cannot choose a different power grid if the entire country depends on one network. Infrastructure traps people. It forces dependence. And for investors, dependence means profit that never stops. So BlackRock made a quiet shift. They moved away from the ESG spotlight. They moved away from moral branding. They moved straight into the structure of modern civilization. Then the Global Infrastructure Partners deal arrived. A $12 billion purchase that shocked even Wall Street. It instantly made BlackRock one of the largest owners of airports, pipelines, energy grids, and shipping terminals on the planet. It gave them direct control over critical systems in multiple countries. Systems nations need just to function each day, and the most important part is this: infrastructure cannot be replaced easily. There is no second Panama Canal. There is no second national power grid. There is no second city airport magically appearing to compete with the one already built. Whoever owns infrastructure owns the flow of life itself. That control lasts for decades, sometimes for generations, and the payments come like clockwork. Larry Fink knew this. He saw $70 trillion in global infrastructure demand coming by the year 2040. He saw countries desperate for investment. He saw governments drowning in debt. He saw a world where public systems would be sold piece by piece. And BlackRock was ready to buy everything. This shift was not a small adjustment. It was the start of BlackRock's most powerful strategy. A strategy that would take them far beyond money management. A strategy that would place them inside global conflicts, inside reconstruction plans, inside the lifelines of entire nations. And one war in particular would give Larry Fink the perfect opportunity to prove how far that influence could reach. The Ukraine reconstruction deal and the New World Order ***. When the war in Ukraine began, most of the world focused on the destruction. Cities leveling, factories burning, millions fleeing, chaos everywhere. But Larry Fink saw something different. He saw the beginning of the largest reconstruction project in modern history, a project worth hundreds of billions, maybe even more. Only months into the conflict, he made his move. He did not wait for peace. He did not wait for stability. He went straight to the top. Larry Fink met directly with President Zelensky. No middlemen, no committees. Just a private discussion between the leader of a devastated country and the man who controls trillions. Together, they formed a new fund, the Ukraine Development Fund, a pool of money that would rebuild the country once the fighting stopped. A fund designed and guided by BlackRock. A fund fueled by global donors, public banks, and private investors. It was a shocking moment. Not because the fund existed, but because of who controlled it. A private corporation had positioned itself as the architect of a nation's recovery. Something usually handled by governments or international institutions, but this time BlackRock held the keys. Why did Larry move so quickly? Because reconstruction is the perfect business. It begins with destruction. It ends with decades of steady income. Airports, highways, power grids, water systems, digital networks. Everything must be rebuilt. And every rebuilt system gives investors long-term returns. Returns backed by a population that has no choice but to use the infrastructure that gets installed. Ukraine became the test case, a blueprint for future conflicts. A model that shows the world how BlackRock plans to operate in regions shattered by war. But here is the darker question people whisper about. BlackRock also holds massive stakes in defense contractors. Companies that produce missiles, jets, and weapons used in wars around the world, so they profit when conflicts explode. And they profit again when everything must be rebuilt. BlackRock denies this creates any conflict of interest. They say their holdings simply mirror the market. But the timing raises uncomfortable questions. Questions that no regulator has fully answered. What cannot be denied is this: BlackRock is now embedded in Ukraine's future. When peace arrives, they will oversee the biggest rebuilding effort since the end of the Second World War. And once they finish, the world will look at Ukraine and see a country built through BlackRock's blueprint. But Ukraine is not the final destination. It is only the beginning. A preview of what BlackRock plans to do in every region facing destruction and rebuilding. And the next stage in their plan is even more unsettling. Because BlackRock is building a model where they profit no matter what the world becomes, whether the world moves toward peace or slides deeper into conflict. The final form. A company that profits whether the world burns or rebuilds ***. BlackRock built an empire where every outcome leads to gain. If the world stays peaceful, they win. If the world breaks apart, they win again. There is no scenario where they lose. Look at their portfolio. They hold massive positions in defense companies. They gain when nations buy missiles. They gain when governments expand military budgets. They gain when global tensions rise. But that is only the first layer. The second layer is even more powerful. When a conflict ends, everything must be rebuilt. Cities, hospitals, railways, energy lines, housing, roads. Who steps in to handle that enormous task? The same company holding the defense stocks. The same company advising governments. The same company shaping financial strategy for entire regions. BlackRock. It is a model built on both sides of global instability. War fuels one part of the portfolio, reconstruction fuels the other. And Aladdin sits beneath all of it, watching markets, tracking risk, predicting reactions. Every move is guided by a system that sees deeper than any human team ever could. When governments panic, they call BlackRock. When banks fail, they call BlackRock. When economies wobble, they call BlackRock. It is not just influence. It is dependence. A dependence that grows each year as the world becomes more chaotic. Add infrastructure to the equation and the picture becomes even clearer. The airports they own generate money whether life is peaceful or unstable. The pipelines they control earn revenue whether the world grows or collapses. The power grids they manage deliver income every single day because people cannot opt out of electricity. This is not normal corporate power. This is structural power. Power that sits inside the systems every country needs to survive. So what does it all lead to? A silent empire. A firm that shapes markets without running for office. A company that influences global policy without ever being elected. A corporation that can steer nations without placing a single soldier on any battlefield. BlackRock has created a world where the flow of money always circles back to them. A world where their reach extends into governments, crises, wars, and daily life. A world where their decisions ripple across continents. And the most unsettling part is simple. This entire rise happened quietly, slowly, without public attention, without public debate, without most people even realizing what was happening. Which leaves one final question. If a company can profit no matter what direction the world moves, who really holds the influence? The governments you vote for? Or the firm that holds the systems those governments depend on? That question changes everything. Most people will never see BlackRock's name on a ballot. They will never debate its policies. They will never choose its leaders. Yet its influence shapes their daily lives more than they realize. It sits inside pension funds. It sits inside mortgages. It sits inside the markets that rise and fall each day. It sits inside the systems that keep modern life running. BlackRock became powerful not by force, but by quiet necessity. Governments leaned on it. Banks leaned on it. Entire economies leaned on it. Until the world reached a point where stepping away seemed impossible. Whether this power is good or dangerous depends on how you view a world run by corporations instead of elected leaders. Some see BlackRock as a stabilizer. Some see it as a silent threat. Most people see it as something they still do not fully understand. But one truth stands above all the noise. BlackRock did not rise through chance. It rose because the world kept giving it more responsibility than any company should ever hold. And with every new crisis, that responsibility grows. So the real question is not how BlackRock became so powerful. The real question is who will challenge that power. And what happens if no one ever does?